Thank you, everyone. I think welcome everyone to the PICTA-wide Technopreneurship event. My name is Amina Koza. I'm the Oracle Technology Sales Representative. I'm also the Oracle South Africa leader, our Oracle Women in Leadership leader for the South African chapter. I'd like to welcome you to this event and just give you a brief narrative of why we are here. We started this with a series of obviously partnership between Oracle Women in Leadership and the Women in Leadership chapter from the PICTA-wide, by starting off with the International Women's Day webinar that took place on the 8th of March, 2021. We decided from that session that we would then focus on the key elements that came up in order for us to not just be a talk shop, but to make sure that we address the matters that were raised in that particular workshop. The first action that we took was part 1 of the Technopreneurship, where we focused on a vehicle for future startups. Questions that we addressed in those sessions were, why are women prominent in high numbers? Why are women not prominent in high numbers in the digital space? Why a lot of women from universities or equivalent are not technopreneurs or entrepreneurs compared to men? What does it mean to be a woman in technopreneurship? How do we nurture women that are already technopreneurs to ensure that they become change makers and leaders? How do we assist in bringing the girl child to the technopreneur ecosystem? And the biggest question we did ask, is technopreneurship the future of the startups? If it is, how must it be modeled to enable conducive environment for women in rural, peri-rural, and urban areas to join entrepreneurial space? This today is part 2 of the Technopreneurship, and our focus is to talk about opening access for women in building innovation and resilience in the market. Today, joining me is a panel, a very esteemed panel. I've got Nicole Sykes, who's head of Women in Business at FNB, Dr. Mpho Raburife, senior lecturer, program coordinator, BIT at the University of Johannesburg, Dr. Luzango Pangani Mfupe, professor and professional research at NextGen, an institution at CSIR, Eli Matenje, whom you've met in our previous session. She's the Strategic Initiatives Manager at Oracle. Timothy Matlala, Enterprise Development at Standard Bank. And lastly, Vanessa June Obasi, a Marketing Communications Lead in Aggressive Capital. I'd like to take this moment to welcome you to this event. Firstly, I would like to kick off with housekeeping rules. Kindly go on mute if you are not speaking. We would encourage everyone to please put your videos on so that we can see each other as we interact. Please keep this session as interactive as possible. We will be taking questions through the Q&A section of the webinar. We also will be running a few pods for everyone. So I welcome you and wish that you enjoy this session with us. Allow me to also share the agenda for today's session. I've already covered the opening remarks. I will be inviting Dr. Shwama Hamiele to come and do the PICTA-wide update. I will come back in my capacity as Oracle Women Leadership Leader Chapter for South Africa to give you a heads up and an update on that. And then we will kick off our roundtable discussion with our esteemed panel as previously introduced. We will take questions and answers and closing remarks. We will obviously look at a way forward in terms of how do we proceed from this session. So thank you for joining. Firstly, let's start with the poll. You can use the poll, but you can respond to the poll by answering to the question, what are the barriers to access funding and resources for technopreneurs, especially women? Is it limited education and information, lack of experience and training opportunities, personal barriers, lack of confidence, patience, and the ability to dream bigger, social, cultural norms and values, political barriers limited to government incentives and concessions. I'll give you a moment to make your vote. Please select one that is relevant to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Can you hear me? Am I audible now?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, I got disconnected. I don't know if we were able to look at the results, Rufaro. Sorry, I got disconnected. It's raining out here in Pretoria and the network is not very excited today. Okay, so the leading two factors is limited education and information, as well as political barriers. In fact, there's three leading responses: social and cultural norms and values that is limiting access, or that's creating a barrier to access for females in the technopreneurship space. Thank you. Dr. Shama, please go ahead and give us an update from a Pakta-wide perspective.
Thank you, Rufaro. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon to the participants and the panel members. My name is Swama Hamunyela. I am from Namibia. You probably hear all saying that, who is this one? We're not familiar with the name Hamunyela in SA and so forth. I'm actually based in Windhoek. I am a lecturer at the Faculty of Computing and Informatics. I am heading the Department of Informatics and also now being in charge of the PITA wider, that is Women in Digital Era. So my task is to give you a brief introduction and update, as it's called, from the PITA side. I assume that a number of you have heard about WIDA before, as you have heard about PITA, and then somebody will start talking about WIDA in the middle of the conversation. So that is us, the Women in Digital Era from the PITA. We are focused on the women. We want to empower women in the digital era, and our mission is aligned with the national and international guidelines that are focused on women empowerment and emancipation, leadership in digital eras, and so forth. Those are the UNDGs and other international documents that we focused on. All right, having said so, I want to move on to bring to your attention the goals that PITA has or tried to formulate that are guiding our activities for 2021 to 2025. We have 4 goals. The first of them is socioeconomic development and sustainability. We want to see to it that women solve societal and global challenges through digital innovations. We also want to see women having or becoming fully independent in terms of income generations, trying to match up, especially the women in the rural areas. Although we haven't really had an event with the women in the rural areas in Western Cape or in Namibia or anywhere else. That is one of our focus. We are getting there. We're just at the beginning, and definitely the sisters in rural areas will be one of our targets as the time goes. We want to see to it that we have empowered them, or we build capacity. We want to see to it that the women have the necessary skills for Industry Revolution 4.0. They understand and they can participate in the discussions and the activities around digital activities or initiatives. We want to promote women in digital environments. We want to see to it that there's quite a number of women taking up leadership positions in different IT companies or universities or any place where they are talking about digital innovations. So those are the two goals: socioeconomic development and sustainability, and also capacity building. Now, the third and the fourth goals, we are talking about dissemination of information. Many are times that women are left behind, not because they do not want to participate, but simply because they have not heard about a certain opportunity, how they can raise funds for their small businesses or digital environments. We want to make sure that women get the information that they need via digital platforms, social medias, and anywhere else that we can put the information and be accessible to them. We also want to network and partner up with other local or international agencies that shares a common vision with us. For example, now that we have this partnership with Oracle Women, that is very, very useful, and it's part of the wider agenda. So far, I have covered our vision and PITA goals. Just to update you on what we have covered so far, this is the third event that we are talking about women in digital era, and we are focused on the technopreneurship. Our very first event for the year was simply to celebrate and to appreciate women in digital environments. And from that event, we had brilliant ideas. Then we partner up with Oracle, and this is the second event, if I am not mistaken, among or in the list of events that we planned to do, to carry out in a short space. I don't know if I have met the expectations of the chairperson and the anybody else in the meeting or in the room that has a question about WIDA. We can talk about it later, or you could reach out to me, to Rufaro, to Amina, or anybody else. Anyway, just type an email, send an SMS or anything, then we can respond to your query. All right, so Amina, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shoma Hamiela, South Africa chapter, to actually partner up with PICTA. I will start where I was going to finish off my conversation. We've done now 3 events together, and what is becoming more and more evident is that we are not a talk shop. The 2 events for Technopreneurship, one, the vehicle for startups, and now this that focuses on providing access or giving ideas in terms of access to women, is the second leg of that. We've got a couple of planned activities, and there might be something that comes out of today's session that might then necessitate that we have part 3 of the Technopreneurship. We're planning a hackathon for youth coming up in June jointly together. We do not discriminate from males and females, but the intention is to have a large pool of participants being female. If we can really balance that one off, that is our hope. And our hope is that with the partners here and the other partners that PICTA has, and obviously through other Oracle internal programs, we would then be able to take the ideas or the innovations that come out of that session, the top runners of those ideas, and mentor those young people that would have won. We do hope that a female team will also feature in the top, because most of the hackathons that we've seen, it's generally male, but we're hoping a female team will come out tops as well. And we plan to then mentor those youths and look for partnerships that will enable those ideas to then become commercialized. And we've got a couple of partners in this room that we will talk to about that. So there's a whole lot of things, and that we intend to not just do this as a piecemeal affair over 12 weeks, but we intend to do it, to stretch it over a period of a year, so that we can work through the process of growing an innovative idea all the way to commercializing it with mentorship from women in technology and men in technology. We encourage that as well. Just to give you a brief history, and just I'll cover the history of where we come from, our mission, and our key objectives. So the history of Oracle Women in Leadership is that we began in 2006 as a grassroots effort in response to an overwhelming demand for female employees to offer them greater opportunities to enhance skills and develop their leadership. Our mission really is to develop and engage and empower current and future generations of women at Oracle, and obviously not just at Oracle, but also across our community and the communities that we work with. I will talk just at high level in terms of what our program objectives look like. Our program objective is to strengthen leadership capacity and potential of youth, women, and Oracle employees internally and externally. And we do that. One of the examples is the video that played at the beginning, where we formally are engaged with the school that was founded by Oracle about 12 years ago now. And we do that there. We also do that through community outreach project to increase engagement and retention of women in the ICT sector. And we're doing it internally. We've seen that there's a lot of women who come into technical roles, and then they later migrate out of the space. So our attempt is to also make sure that they actually keep these careers and become future role model, to strengthen relationships internally, multinationals, and externally in our customer base, with our allies and also other lines of businesses that form part of building a business around IT and IT itself, to build strong customer relationship linked to our strategy and their strategy. It's great to see that 2 of our customers are actually, or 3 of our customers are actually part of this panel, and those are kind of the things that we also work on. And our biggest, and more, maybe I'm more leaning towards this because it's my personal passion, is cultivating change by focusing on paying it forward for women and our allies. And then my phone went off, sorry. And our allies. So in a nutshell, that is what Oracle Women in Leadership is about. That's what our objectives are. And in partnership with PICTA, that is what we are hoping to do. There will be additional things that we will be doing together, and to ideas in terms of how do we enable this environment to focus on both our objectives and the objectives of South Africa in general. On that note, I would like to move on from Oracle and move into our panel discussion. I would firstly like to start off with an introduction. So instead of me calling your name out, I will start with you, Ellie, but I'd like for us to just do it naturally, just follow top to bottom way of introduction. So we'll start with Ellie and we'll end off there with you, Timothy. It's not anything against you, but it's just how the slides were put together. So Ellie, would you please start with an introduction there from your side?
Yes, thanks, Amina. So hello, everyone. My name is Ellie Mathenge. I work for Oracle, sitting out of the East Africa office in Nairobi, Kenya. And I'm one of the jobs that I do at Oracle is work very close. Okay, Soma, you could kindly mute, thank you. Is work very closely with the Techpreneur ecosystem, whereby I help startups get on the Oracle Startup program, where we support startups that are ready to scale and become enterprise. Thank you, Amina.
Thank you. Nicole? Hi, Nicole. Okay, maybe let's, can you ask Nicole, are you good over there?
Yeah. Can you hear me now? There
Yes,
we go, great.
Thank
Before
you.
I unmute me. So I was just saying, thank you for having me on the panel this afternoon. You've got to love technology. It only works when it doesn't. But so as Amina said, my name is Nicole. It's actually Nicole Christopoulou, but it's so much easier to say Sykes, which is my maiden name, and for anybody to pronounce. So I always use Sykes in the work term. But I have the absolute pleasure of looking after our strategy and head up, as Amina said, our focus on female-led businesses in the organization. I guess I'm privileged because I get to work with female-led businesses every day. I get to help them create networks, open up opportunities for them, and anything and everything we do is focused around that support. Sorry, Amina, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, right.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Thank you.
And I just wanted to say, I think this, if anything has taught us, this Corona coaster we've been on for the last year is resilience, and especially as women, I think we wear many hats. I like to say we're like diamonds, we're multifaceted, and this has certainly taught us how to be resilient. Just further to comment earlier by Dr. by Susanna, is that we also subscribe to the UN principles, and that we realize the importance of having more females contributing to the economy. So our purpose is, and that of our organization, is to do our best to help support and grow female-led businesses. So please also feel free to reach out to me post this as well, because I'd love to engage.
Thank you, Nicole. Dr. Mpo, nice to have you again in the panel. Would you please introduce yourself and give us a bit of background about who you are?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me again on the panel. I am Pora Borife, a senior lecturer at UJ under the Department of Applied Information Systems. I'm also the program coordinator for Business Information Technology, which is a program, an advanced diploma that brings business and tech together. I'm a trained computational linguist. I've also worked in corporate, and I still do consultations. I'm also a technical advisor for Seabridge Advisory, which is based in Texas and Berlin. And in 2018, I was part of the team that founded the Techno Lab at UJ under the School of Information Systems and Marketing and Information Knowledge Management. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Luzango Mfupe.
Thank you, Amina, for having me. My name is Luzango Mfupe. I'm a principal researcher at the CSAR. CSAR stands for Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. We are an entity of the Department of Science and Innovation in the government of South Africa. Our core mission is to improve the lives of South African citizens and the rest of the Africans. Our motto is research and innovation through collaboration. So we do a lot of collaboration and partnership with various entities from the private sector, the UN type of developmental agencies like UNDP, SMMEs, you name it. So we do a lot of innovation in various sectors. We have 9 clusters. I can't name all of them, but myself, I'm from the cluster which deals with ICT. We're developing technologies for IR. We are assisting the government to make a capable state, as well as the private sector and the industry. So we have been involved in a number of initiatives to support women and girl child in particular. Maybe we will talk about those when the question time comes. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Mfupe. Vanessa June Obasi, please tell us about yourself and Ingressive Capital briefly. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Amina, for this. My name is Vanessa Junobasi, and I work as the head of communications and growth at Ingressive Capital, which is a venture capital fund from here in Lagos, Nigeria. And we invest in companies in sub-Saharan Africa, and we actually run from pre-seed funding all the way to, seed funding for companies here in sub-Saharan Africa. And we have significantly been ensuring that we're doing a lot of work in making sure that we have a lot of businesses here in Africa who actually feel like they don't have like accessibility to funding, to or access to companies who's gonna investors who's gonna be a part of that, and we're ensuring that we make that or significantly close that gap. And very proud of what we've been doing thus far, and very, 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 very excited to be on this panel. I think that this conversation is one of the things we need to have, especially for women, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa, and just ensuring that this is a progressional concept that needs to happen. So very, very proud of being part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. And last but not least, Mr. Matlala, over to you for an introduction.
Thank you very much, Amina. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this important discussion. It is truly an honor for me and a privilege to join these esteemed fellow panelists. I was born and bred in Limpopo province, a township called Seshego, just a few kilometers outside of Polokwane. I'm a passionate banker, and I spent a greater part of my career in business banking, where my passion is deeply rooted. So in my experience, I've really journeyed with business owners from startups all the way to well-established businesses, and have a great appreciation of the challenges they face through the various stages of business. So in my current role as head of enterprise development for Standard Bank in South Africa, our aim is really to move businesses to the next level by providing bespoke access to development. We're supporting access to markets initiatives, and we're also creating alternative means for these businesses to access funding. And we do this through a variety of initiatives, which we'll talk about much later. And this is really aimed at working with real businesses to ensure that they're able to succeed, they're able to grow, and they're able to really contribute towards the employment opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Timothy Matlala. So everyone, that is our panel. Please, you're welcome to post questions via the Q&A if you would like to pose questions. Just to pick up the discussion from where we were in our last session, I'd like to go firstly to you, Dr. Mpo. I think one of the last few comments that were made in the previous session was that there's a whole lot of research that gets done by university students, and they build up so much KPI, innovative ideas, and then they come out of that environment and they move into corporate space. And obviously there are some economic reasons that could be a justification for that, but there are also those who actually don't move on to be employed, nor to start up their businesses. Can you give us your view in terms of why is that from a South African context? Innovation is probably one of the biggest that we see in university theses and projects that the students do. What is, would you maybe just share with us there? What are your thoughts?
I mean, there's a lot of projects, especially in third year IT courses, where students come up with solutions to certain problems, sometimes commissions by corporate, right? But there's also a disjoint between academia and industry. There's also, again, for students, a disjoint between getting this degree and entrepreneurship. So until we kind of are able to merge these two together and introduce the students at an early stage of their university life, how, you know, technopreneurship, what is it, and how you can use tech to drive your business. And this is what I think UJ, we are at the forefront of it. So as far as I know, we are one of the few universities in South Africa that has this technopreneurship lab, right, where we introduce students from all walks of life and all walks of fields to say, you come in, if you're a marketing student, you bring in your expertise, you meet with the developers from the IT department, and we have this whole ecosystems that enable students to kind of get the feel of how to actually start a product from the beginning until you take it to market. Another thing that's also a disjoint in academia, in terms of even I as a researcher, innovation as a scientist doesn't necessarily mean that something is needed, right? Remember, my KPI as a scientist is to publish and do research that speaks to my field. That doesn't necessarily mean that that research can be taken to market. So those are kind of factors that kind of limit. Do students know what entrepreneurship is? And if you talk about the tech IT, this is a fast-paced field, and we have a problem with retaining students also, because of, by the time that in the last year, the last quarter, companies have taken the best students out and offered them jobs. So those are the kind of key factors that actually affect this retaining students into entrepreneurship. And even outside of the tech side of it, it's hard to be an entrepreneur. You know, the first 3 years of being alone, starting your business at that time are the hardest. And this is the case even not for tech companies. This is a space for everyone. In South Africa, 70% of this small businesses don't even survive, right? And then you have to factor that in. Do you think a student would want to business? I get my diploma, I have to struggle for another 3 years when I can just go to corporate and go work and get experience. And I personally would always say, I think it's good to kind of get some experience in different fields of IT, so that when you want to go at it alone, you have some experience of actually starting a product, how different functions within a business work, and therefore that increases your chance of being successful. Yeah, so those are my views.
Okay, those are interesting views, and I wonder if maybe especially from the point of view where you're coming from in terms of as a researcher and a scientist, your KPI is different. It's not necessarily to create technopreneurs. If I could maybe go to Dr. Luzango, because Dr. Mfupe, because you work with, that is your core function, where your KPI is actually to change the South African diaspora by these innovative ideas and making them more commercial. I mean, if it's that's a correct assumption to make, to get your opinion in terms of the ideas, is there disjoint there, or in your space is it different? And if so, what are you doing in that space? And how are you seeing the female uptake of technology, technopreneurship for that matter, or entrepreneurship as well, I suppose?
Thank you, Amina. Absolutely. So I'm not, my view doesn't really differ much from Mpo. We are both scientists. Our KPIs are almost the same. However, we have the other mandate, as you rightly put, to improve the lives of South Africans through our research, innovation, and development of different applications, tools, systems. So we actually are required by the state to commercialize our products. So we don't just do the research and leave it there like the way most universities do. We actually do applied research. We don't just leave them on the shelves. We develop tools that can be used, systems, applications, you name it. And how do we commercialize? We are not doing the commercial ourselves to the market, but we seek partnership with, for example, SMMEs, who are actually the highest priority is actually SMMEs. We work with them through capacity building, training, mentorship, even linking them with other state entities that provide grants, funding, so that they can take the technology that we have to the market. So we just don't end there. We support the entrepreneurs, SMMEs, and even other big players up to the market, so that whatever we develop at the CSIR can benefit the nation at large. Talking about women in particular, I can give you, for example, one good example that we are actually involved in at the moment. We are we're actually collaborating with the UNDP, United Nations Development Program, South African office, to support women, youth, and persons with disability-owned digital SMMEs. We are empowering them with infrastructure for telecoms. So we are actually trying to build small network operators, and the preference is women. At least 40% of our recipients, they should be women-owned SMMEs. And we actually encourage women SMMEs and youth-owned SMMEs from the townships and rural areas. So we don't just give them the technology. We have some good technologies, low-cost type of technology that can provide affordable broadband. We through the program, we also do capacity building and training, so that when we hand over the technology to them, the network infrastructure, they will be in a position to run it sustainably. So we go back to the UNDG's sustainable development. So we want to make sure that these SMMEs, especially women-owned and youth, they'll run the businesses sustainably in the long run. Thank you.
Great. I think with that as a point of departure, that we do get these things ready to hit the market. From an enterprise development, and Nicole and Timothy, maybe you both can contribute here in terms of what is your experience from an enterprise development perspective, or supplier development perspective, or in fact funding perspective. What is available to these women entrepreneurs or the youth entrepreneurs that come up with these innovative ideas? How do you support them to get on their feet? I know Timothy mentioned that there's mentorship that does go into it, and they help them to get there. And we also know that if the business survives beyond 3 years, it has potential to actually then survive have a much longer lifespan. How do the vehicles that you have within FNB, within Standard Bank, and Ingressive Capital for that matter, enable these innovations to actually grow and flourish and hit the market? How do we create our own Silicon Valley in South Africa, and how are the financial institutions, not South Africa, but across Africa, how are the financial institutions enabling that? Any takers, Nicole, Timothy, Vanessa? Okay, I'll pick on you, Nicole, first. Oh, okay, go Tim.
All right, good. Yeah, so you're right. I mean, and I'm sure we are all probably in agreement that women-owned businesses continue to be marginalized, right? And perhaps one of the other ways we can remedy this is for us as institutions, both private and public, to really be more deliberate about the empowerment of women in business. And we can do this by really placing strong focus on supporting, developing, and growing women-owned businesses, not only in the industries that are perceived to be women-dominated industries like retail and food and beverage, but we need to play a meaningful role and be intentional in how we grow businesses that are in male-dominated industries, such as technology. So some of the efforts that are being that are focused on transformation, inclusion, from our side as enterprise development, are focused on Black-owned business, and we run initiatives that are being spearheaded by ourselves. We form partnerships with corporates, public sector entities. We've got one of our clients in Standard Bank South Africa that we've partnered with a deliberate intention to empower women. We also form partnerships with institutions of higher learning because it is important that we are visible and active at a point where they are still being groomed and being molded to a point that when they are ready to attack the market, they've got the necessary tools and support that they need to do so.
So Nicole, just to pick up on that, right? I mean, women really struggle to get funding. How do you support? How is FNB assisting in this, in making sure that these women actually do get some form of funding to get their business going? I mean, we have to beg, borrow, or kill someone, not kill, but hey, we have to beg, borrow, or bootstrap, whatever it is that we need to do to get the funding to start our businesses. But we don't have that much of a luxury in terms of, you know, if you look at the economic gap, the Black middle class is not necessarily a true middle class. And a lot of these, the bulk of the people that need to get access are actually coming from these disadvantaged backgrounds. How is FNB assisting in that space?
Okay, I keep on being unmuted, so thank you. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I can completely agree with what Tim said in the way that Standard Bank is addressing the market, and especially on the enterprise development side. But I'm sure everybody on the call is aware that sort of as financial institutions, we're governed by regulation. So we need to ensure that we treat our customers fairly, and you know, and even though there are inequalities in the past, and we do know this, we need to ensure that we have a focused and strategic view on changing those inequalities. And it's very difficult in our world. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Sorry, it keeps on breaking up on my side. You know, we need to ensure that women are forming part of the economy. They're becoming economy active and want to. So we see that education is key, and that sort of starts at school level with STEM. When it comes to the funding, we have different vehicles that we can help support businesses. Typically, banks and financial institutions don't fund startups, but there are other ways that we help support businesses. And we were actually, FNB was voted the best SME bank of the year in the world most recently. And that was because of our whole holistic offering to support SMEs, and part of that focus being on supporting women. But we offer education, and that's where it's key, financial literacy. And we have different tools within our ecosystem that help support that. We've got a learning platform called Fundaba that you can access as an FNB client that helps to educate you on how to incubate, start, run, and grow your business. And that has information, it's got podcasts, it's got worksheets, all sorts of information to help you as a startup to gain that knowledge to get your business going. We also have a business toolkit that we developed specifically during COVID that helps businesses to pivot. And that was developed with a partner of ours that we partner very closely with on our enterprise development. side as well. And that really assisted our businesses during the COVID pandemic to pivot and to think differently. So it's all about that education. We run various business propellers, and yeah, I mean, obviously offer funding and vehicles to maintain that funding, and different product sets to help you at every stage of your business. So I'm not sure if you want me to go into the different types of funding instruments there are, but typically startup is very difficult. It's a hard place to be in. Like you said, you've got to beg, borrow, and steal, and or bootstrap. So it's a bit of a tricky one. My suggestion would be to approach organizations, because there are many out there that actually do fund startups, but education is key. So do your research, Google, and yeah, I mean, that would sort of be my advice.
Great, thanks, Nicole. That's great advice. Thanks, Timothy, as well. You know, we've been largely South Africa focused in terms of obviously our exposure, and our ultimate objective is not to just focus on South Africa, but to also focus across the continent. And Vanessa, you probably have more exposure in terms of the rest of the continent that we live in terms of what are the vehicles, what are the challenges. I understand you've helped a couple of organizations as well from your organization perspective. Take us through just the market, what it looks like north of South Africa, and what are the challenges, and some of the tools or the vehicles that you are actually using to enable startups, women-owned businesses, and entrepreneurs that are coming up. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thanks.
Very excited about this entire platform that we're doing right now. We start our conversations with, can you hear me? Can I hear you? Okay, we're good. Very excited about it. With that being said, I really like the things that Tim, Nicole, they've talked about, and in all honesty, it's a reality that exists. I don't think that with each different region, it necessarily might be significantly different. We're all in Africa, and being in Africa means that you see realities that significantly just it spirals across board. And being in Nigeria, one of the things that we do in Aggressive Capital is to significantly know that we want to make impact. One of the most interesting things about my MD, Maya Famodu Hogan, is Hogan Famodu. Maya Hogan Famodu. What she does is she doesn't do businesses for the point of it. She loves to understand the human part of it, which is the business, the human behind the business. And what Maya ensures that we all do is really when it comes, and it's beyond just female, male, things like that. So we're not trying to alienate the men. We're also ensuring that we're doing everything in nice put together headspace. However, we also know fully well that we have significantly invested in portfolio accounts that have up to 45% of women in leadership. And that's how we ensure that we can, we're working towards having women at their table, having women at the discussion, having women in conversation. And all the multiple events that we have, it's one thing to say you have an event which is, female inclusive, but you also want to ensure that you believe, you trust, you align. I liked that when we started this, we did the whole the poll and what are the stumbling blocks that are preventing women from being there. And one of the things that I really thought was very interesting was we have societal, socioeconomic issues, and then also of course the societal demands that prevent them from being that way. And I really believe that sometimes I think women just need a little bit of a push, a little bit of a nudge, a little bit of you can do it, because at the end of the day, when we look at tech, what tech is looking at today and what like techpreneurs are doing today, we know fully well that if you date it back to time, there's so many different things that these people have been doing and have been, like these ladies have been doing and have been making effects and differences and changes. And at the end of the day, you also want to ensure that you're working with people who actually do your plan. But then like also there's also the, in quotes, request demands for you to be female a certain way and things like that. It's going to take care of the kids, going to do all of these things like that. And I think women need to be able to remove themselves from those like headspaces and just ensure that at the end of the day, we're working towards the same goal, which is ensuring that we have rules, regulation, and at the end of the day, love and appreciate the things that you're doing and the things that is making such significant effect in the ecosystem. Significantly because we know fully well at the end of the day that these businesses that's pushing doesn't necessarily look at your, I know that when it comes to investor conversations is a different thing because that's just interesting and a thing that I think you all need to like discuss every now and then. And then of course the imposter syndrome also is one of the things we want to talk about as well, because you're like, oh, am I doing enough as my male counterparts? Even though do you hear what I said? I said imposter syndrome is also a thing we need to talk about as well, which is like feeling like, am I doing enough for my male, in comparison to my male counterparts who are doing all these interesting things. But at the end of the day, and I liked what Tim said, earlier. He said that we need to be able to remove the situation. So it's like the food and beverages, those things. No, that's not the conversation. It's like, what are they doing exactly? What are they pushing? How are they moving the business? How are they moving the ecosystem? And these are things that investor capital is looking at beyond just ensuring that, oh, we're investing in people. We're not investing in your business based off of male or female. We're actively thinking, okay, this person, because in all honesty, if you think about it, some investors actually look at these things and be like, well, not necessarily. We don't necessarily think this person might be best opportunity to provide this opportunity or this business. But the thing is, if you remove yourself from that thought process, if you remove yourself from that thought process, you at the end of the day, you're very comfortable with the fact that you don't necessarily need to worry about that. You need to worry about your work, and your work will always speak for itself. When it comes to merit will always speak for itself. And that is one of the things I know fully well that women need to necessarily focus on, and women necessarily just hinge on when it comes to pitching to investors. And that's one of the things I know we're doing at Ingressive Capital. So yeah.
Great. So that's really great. Thanks, thanks, Vanessa. And it's very interesting. We need to step out of our ideas in our heads and just get out there and actually just do what we want to do. The human element has to come out of us in terms of what are the ideas. I think one of the conversations that we've had, we talked about the fact that we should be actually addressing, starting businesses with the hope of resolving business challenges. And heard in our earlier conversations that there are research and so forth, but there should be an element of that addressing the real needs of our society and our communities. There is a question that is coming from the audience. Rufaro, I'm not sure if Rodney can actually ask the question himself directly. Rodney, are you able to pose the question?
He can unmute himself, yeah.
All right.
Please
hello, can you guys
yourself.
hear me?
Hey, Rodney. Long time no see.
Hi there.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Thank you very much. For the rest of the audience, my name is Rodney de Koch. I'm a strategic advisor on the PICA board, and I work alongside with the president, Sonwabo, and the rest of the other members. I had a few questions. Let me just see which is the one that I was referring to. The one was about the academics. I actually wanted the academia panel members on this forum to explain or just give us a very high level demographics in respect of females versus male ICT students. I say that because I sit on the board of Rhodes University, the ICT advisory board, and there's predominantly a high concentration of men or boys. compared to what the women is. Now, in order to enhance women in ICT and the WIT program, I'm curious to know, how is this in other places like such as Namibia or Nigeria, or in some of the other areas, some of the other panel members, just to be able to give us just a view of that at undergraduate and postgraduate level, because that's actually where we need to start. In fact, we need to go even a little bit further in high school and see which encouragement do we have for our matriculants or even grade 10 and 11 to actually go towards a technology environment or technopreneur environment. Because I think once it gets to university, it's a little bit a struggle to try and convince the females to go towards a technology-based career. I'll pause there for a moment and wait for the answers.
Sure, thanks, Rodney, for your question. Dr. Raburifi, would you like to take that one for us?
Yeah, okay. So we always talk about IT as like this monolithic field, and it's not, right? You have computer science, you have information systems, you have computer engineering, and then you have information technology, right? So computer science is where we provide algorithms, so it's much more mesh driven. And this is where you see a higher concentration of boys, right? And the higher degrees they go, the more the girls kind of fall behind. So you might get that the first cohort in the first year, you have 50-50, less, for instance, but by the time they graduate, you'll probably have a 70-30, and that's computer science. This is much more mathematics driven. In IS, information systems, this is the aspect where technology meets business, meets social sciences. So this is what IS does. And therefore, the numbers even then are much more encouraging than in computer science, right? IT is basically more of the application, so networking, hardware infrastructure, and all those stuff. And that's also quite high concentration with boys, the same as computer engineering. So and the higher they go, the more they fall out. I mean, I don't know if you guys know Anita Borg. One of the panelists was saying that women need a push, and what I will talk from a computer scientist point of view, where women have been driving computer science since the early days, but because we were kind of, we had male supervisors, so we work, but our supervisors take our glory from us. We know this from Catherine Johnson, the mathematicians at NASA. Anita Borg wanted, her vision was 50-50 by 2020. We're not there yet. We're not 2021. We're not even, right? And this was Anita Borg's vision, and this is the mother of Unix, right? This is literally the founding mother of Unix, an open source operating system. You look at women at the forefront. We are at the forefront, right? But are we given the space to talk? Right? Who came up with the facial recognition bias? It was Joy, right? Encoded bias. So women are at the forefront, but also which positions are we taking in tech? Are we the developers? Are we the ones writing the algorithms, or are we in the business side? And more girls kind of gravitate towards being business analysts, towards the business side of IT, and the boys are the ones who sit there and write the algorithms and make the decisions.
The question is why, and I'd like to pose it to someone else in the panel. Okay. Why is it that? Why particularly that we're not taking up the right position in that space, in the workspace, even in innovation? Why is that so? Are we still stuck in our societal in our cultural backgrounds that the woman's place is in the kitchen? Are we still stuck there? Or is it very difficult to actually remove the glass ceiling? Is the glass ceiling actually, does it exist? Is it there? What is the underlying reason? Can I go to Sonwabo? I know you're not part of the panel, but we work quite closely with you. And interesting enough, PICTA is the person behind PICTA, or who's driving PICTA and who's started the initiative for women to come up, is a male. Why is it that we're not taking a seat at the table? What is stopping us from doing that? Perception from a male counterpart, and then we'll go to, I'm mindful also of the time, because I'd really like to come out of this discussion having taken tools that we have on offer. 1 minute, 2 minutes input from you.
I'll be very quick. This is my personal feeling. This is what I've experienced in corporate. I think it's more male dominated because of culture. It's more male dominated because of socialization. I think we need to deal with the issue of socialization first, where women have always been pushed back, where girls, when they grow up, as fathers, we don't take a leading role and mold them to be independent and to stand the ground and understand what they want in life and just be confident. You know, the confidence that is put in men and the father playing and always looking after boys. I think we need to change it. Fathers must look after girls and grow them to be as strong as other humans, because we're all human. And personally, this is me. Women are stronger than men, or girls are stronger than the boys. So it's up to us to take it forward and teach our boys now to be able to look after and nurture and support girls or sisters as we go into the future, so that they can support their own children. I think it's a social thing. This is me personally.
I could not have said it much better. And I think as mothers as well, we need to culture our children and allow them to actually be on the same footing as the boy child. I've seen where it's girls only, we do girly stuff, nails, dolls, and all of that. I mean, it's a topic for another day. I think we don't want to dwell into that. I'm going to start with Ellie. Ellie, give us what are the things that from your organization that you are doing to enable startups, mostly key things, and what are the tools that they can take with them? And I would like to follow this theme across going towards the end of this session, because ultimately we want to walk out of this discussion having identified the tools that are available. Yes. Ellie, let me start with you over there.
Thanks, Amina. So one of the things that we are doing and continuously trying to grow is our partnerships. So the way we can reach some of these startups is to focus on innovation hubs or accelerator hubs that are women focused. So like in Nairobi, we partnered with the CC Hub and iHub. So CC Hub ended up buying iHub, and they have a program that specifically caters to women startups founded by women. And in those programs, we work very closely with them to give them the tools to help their startups or scale-ups grow to be companies that are profitable. And so
let's talk about the tools. What are these tools that you're giving them?
So you find some of the things that startups struggle with is just, it could be organizational, putting things in order for an organization to run. So processes, putting processes in place so that you can scale, helping with retention of staff so that you can actually stop bleeding when it comes to growth, getting yourself ready so that you can be funded. And that's why we engage with the likes of Ingressive Capital. And even just articulating your value of what product or service that you have, so that it can turn around and earn more sales. So these are programs we collectively work with over and above the technology that we offer through our Oracle for Startups program.
I don't know if it was my side, but there was a bit of a break in communication, but you were just summarizing at that point. And the kind of the theme that I'm also picking up is a lot of entities are focusing on the knowledge base, on creating the knowledge base, creating an entrepreneur that understands financial skills, that's got financial skills, that's able to identify gaps in their environment from an enterprise development perspective, from a supplier development perspective. Those are the things that entities are really focusing on for startups. But having worked in the startups, in the enterprise development and supplier development space, on a voluntary capacity, one thing came out very loud and clear. Startups are people with, some of them are businesses with experience. Can we please, I don't know who R is, please go on mute. They are saying, we go to this company, we get put on an enterprise development, we have to spend X amount of time in training and
I'm back.
development. We go to this into this entity. We get given, but no one is investing in us taking our business forward. So funding is our biggest challenge. And what are we doing from a funding perspective? We are enabling, we're doing a great job at enabling. And we've seen instances where, I mean, when you talk to entrepreneurs outside, where funding is the big problem and development is there. They come with PhDs and degrees and research. They've got experience. Some of them have cashed in their pensions to start up these businesses, but they need capital injection to get going. And that is not readily available. From that point onwards, what are we doing to meet the entrepreneurs halfway? We're asking them to take up time that they are building in their business, they are building their business with, to attend these training programs, which are well and good. But how are we addressing the availability of the funds that will help them propel their business forward and become liquid and survive as a business? I know also it's a bad strategy to just throw money in hope that something great will happen. You have to manage the risk, but practical tools, what are we doing? Nicole, what are we doing? I'll go to Timothy after this, and I'll come back to you, Dr. Mfupe, to get from your side practical tools that if there's an entrepreneur in this room that is looking for practical tools, what are they that they come to you specifically for? Nicole?
So I think it's really important. I think it's really important, I mean, for entrepreneurs to also understand that any funding that sort of banks do give, so if you're applying for credit, for example, so I'm not going to talk on the enterprise development side because that's Timothy's space, but if you're applying for credit, if a bank is loaning out or a financial institution is giving out money, that is somebody else's money that they've invested in the bank. So that is really, really important for entrepreneurs to know, that we need to be conscious of that and monitor that. But, you know, I think the things that an entrepreneur needs to know is if money is being invested in them with these programs and these sort of incubators and propellers, because there are many out there. So please, everyone on the call, I encourage you to Google and research. Is that, you know, the expectation is that the entrepreneur is going to give of their time and they are going to commit to it. So it is a two-way street. But I think it's really important for entrepreneurs to know their numbers. You know, I mean, there's a great saying that I love. This it's called "The Goal Without a Plan is Just a Wish" by Antoinette de Saint-Exupéry. And I think that just speaks to knowing what it is your business is, what you need the funding for. So be very, very clear on that. Be sure that you've got a problem that you are solving for. And especially I mean, we know technology now is with Corona, it's sort of expedited everything in the technology sphere. But you've got to know that you're solving for a problem, what your numbers are. So know your numbers, having a clear idea of your business and structuring the business effectively. So make sure that you know what that end goal is, and you've got the right structures in place, because it's really important that you know that you've got the right people around the room, the right people on the table that are on the same vision and journey as that you are on. So yeah, those are some of the things I would encourage people to think about. And something that I really wanted to add, which is really important, is that often when starting out a business, SMEs entrepreneurs don't separate their personal and their business accounts. And that's really hard to build a credit track record, because I could be paying for some raw materials, but then also I'm buying home groceries, and then also I'm going to have my nails done. And so it's very important to separate those two things. And that's something that a financial institution will look at. So that is a good tip. And that also builds, will help sort of, work on your credit score as well. And I think then make a list of your priorities and be conscious about it and review them quarterly when it comes to your finances and your spending. So those are a couple of the tips. And like I said, when it comes to the funding, it is difficult. There are programs out there that offer offer that funding with the support, and that will talk to the enterprise development sort of side of things where a lot of corporates are involved. But I also feel, so there is a lot of money that government could also do to help support, and I think that is where we need to have that collaboration with government as well. So Timothy, over to you on the enterprise development side.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I think first acknowledgement that we need to make is that we are dealing with a challenge that does not really require traditional solutions. If we approach this thing from a financial institution point of view, as your normal banking transactions with your conventional approach on lending and so forth, we might not be able to contribute meaningfully in this space. So I think we need to be more creative in coming up with ways and means that we can solve for the market. The other thing is that we talk about financial literacy in isolation. We then talk about mentorship, and then later on we talk about funding or something like that. So I think we need to also have this value chain clearly articulated to a point that we're able to follow through. When we expose women in technology to programs that focuses on financial literacy, we must understand that what are they going to do with that knowledge once we are done? They must run businesses. To run businesses, they need to be funded. So you sort of create a value chain wherein they move from one cohort to the next. You provide them with classroom type of material. You provide them with equipment or vehicle through which they can be able to run their businesses, that is funding. Thereafter, once they are in business, then you plug in the mentorship element so that they achieve sustainability. And if I just think about funding alone, I think we need to really firm up on these partnerships that we are forming across. We need to explore this ecosystem enough to identify the role players within the sector, because we understand that banks will always view these transactions as high risk because they are startups, right? So how do we start to explore risk sharing models with some of the role players within the industry, be it a company that provides the equipment, be it a company that provides vehicle or tools that they can use to run their businesses. How do we get together to solve for this problem that we both can then sort of start saying that, how do we share the risk? Because each one of us has got discomfort around getting into this place to play without collateral and so forth. I think we need to be talking more as role players within the industry to help women excel in this space. Thanks.
Amina, you're on mute.
I was saying thanks, Timothy. That's very very informative, and it's a truckload of good advice that we should be considering, whether we are financial institution or organizations that actually put these programs in place. And yes, I agree with you. We need to find a space where we come in together and we actually identify how are we going to contribute. Sorry, I don't know what's happening. Sorry, this is not a today only topic. It's been for many years, and it's probably going to be a topic discussed in the future until we find innovative ways to support entrepreneurs. Dr. Mfupe, toolkits.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I didn't hear the last part, but I think I get the gist of it.
Yeah, it's maybe, sure. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead.
So I agree with Timothy. This is not just funding. You can throw millions of rands to a startup and they'll not be able to utilize it efficiently. So what do we do? I'll give you practical examples. We have a number of infrastructure at the CSAR that we use to support entrepreneurs. For example, we have the High Performance Computing Center where one can use to do computing if whatever application the SMME is developing or is running as a business. they can have access to the high computing infrastructure. We have data storage infrastructure. If you're working big data environment, you can utilize our system. But we also have developed some systems for enabling the innovative network operators. And we combine our tools with external partners. For example, initially I talked about the UNDP. Through the UNDP funding, we have structured an innovative way of supporting the SMMEs in a manner that we do all the back-end stuff for SMMEs businesses. For example, if you want to run a network infrastructure to provide internet to the rural areas, we at the CSR manage your back-end. In doing so, we relieve the SMME from paying for services. For example, they need to pay for hosting, they need to pay for backhaul for internet, they need to pay maybe for tower collocation and all these operational costs, which normally they eat a lot of operating capital of these SMMEs. So we take those as a risk, of course, but we hope that the SMMEs will eventually, maybe after 1 or 2 years, be able to run their business sustainably. After that, maybe after our support for maybe 2 years, we can leave them to go themselves on their own and run their businesses, or we can link them with other funding agencies and institutions who can support with additional funding for expansion. But at least we relieve them with all these burdens of paying for these operational costs for at least 1 or 2 years. So this is how we do it. We don't really give you the funding, the money, but we relieve you from the costs that would require you to pay different service providers for a period of time. Thank you.
Just to do a closing remarks, can I ask each one of you to think about one thing that you would share with the entrepreneurs on this call that you believe will give them value? Just 1 point, 30 seconds each, just in summary, one advice that you would give them, and then we'll run a poll to also just get more information in terms of what else they would like to hear from you. Just one question. Let me start with you because you're on the floor, Dr. Mfupe. Or let me give you time to think. Let me give you time to think. Let's start with you there, Ellie, at the top. Ellie?
Oh, sorry, ask the question again.
One tip, quick 30-second tip that you would give to the entrepreneurs on the call for something that you believe they should focus on to get ahead.
You need to focus on getting your operations right, especially your books, so that you can attract the right funding for growth.
Great, thank you. Nicole?
Okay, I was going to say that, but the second point would be to actually look at opening up networks. Network. Just try as many avenues, apply for as many programs as possible that there are out there. I mean, I've got a case of a client that just because she applied for a program and she went on it, she's now pitching to a VC in San Francisco because she did not give up. She applied for every program that was out there and she just learned and educated herself. So that would be my advice.
Vanessa?
I would say learn the art of personal branding. It's one of the things that I think businesses forget, ignore, disrespect, and all of those interesting things, but learn the art of personal branding and thought leadership, because you want to be able to put yourself out there. And like Nicole said, if you're going to want to network, you want to be able to have a little bit of background for what you're actually driving. So learn the art of personal brand. If you don't know it, there is 1 million things on the internet. You can learn from there. So yeah, that's one thing.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Dr. Mpo, I'm saving the gentleman for last. Dr. Mpo?
I would say you need to know and understand your market, and that will help you package yourself and your product.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. To the point. Thanks. Dr. Nduzango, are you ready with your advice and nuggets?
Yes, madam.
Yeah, let's go.
Understand your ecosystem, the value chain, your upstream and downstream players, and where should you position yourself in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Matlala.
Yes, thank you, Amina. To the doctor's points, I think it's really about immersing yourself in how you're going to approach this journey, because it's a journey. So I think financial institutions must be utilized not only for purposes of opening accounts or seeking for funding. Use the banks to learn how to prepare yourself to just embark on this journey. What documents, what form of sort of information do you need for yourself to be ready to attack the market?
Great. Thank you so much. I'd like to just take this opportunity to say thank you to the panel for the very informative discussion. I certainly learned a lot from a woman who sells soap from the boot of her car and puts the money in her own personal bank account, and it ends up doing her own personal things. I've learned quite a lot, and also learned a whole lot in terms of from a guidance. So we are running a poll with all the participants that are in the room. Please let us know. It's a multiple choice. You can choose everybody. You can choose one. Which of the speakers' organization would you like more information from? So you can, if it's everyone, please go ahead, select all the speakers, all the entities that you would like to get information. We will be sending feedback after this webinar. So I'll give you a minute to post your responses. And to the panelists, thank you so much. We will direct the emails or the requests directly to yourself. I really appreciate your time. Dr. Soma, whilst we are responding to the poll, can you please give us the closing remarks and way forward? Oh, sorry. Rufaro, can you please proceed to the next slide where we talk about what is next, and then we can do the thank yous. So the slide is being delayed, but allow me to speak about what we've got lined up. I don't know if we're going to have a follow-up session around technopreneurship. Certainly we'll hear from the panel and we'll review the questions and the information that we get to determine if we're going to have a series 3 of this conversation. But it was really great talking to the panel, and I hope everyone on this call learned a lot from the discussion. We've got an upcoming event, which is the Developer Masterclass. So as I explained in the beginning, we are working on a hackathon that will be in June. Dates and information will be published. We are really driving this home. Anyone on this call, you will get an invite. You will see us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Please share this information with youth so that we can really entice them to participate. We will have a master class session that will be hosted by Oracle, and we will give them the toolkits that they need in order for them to be ready for the hackathon coming up in June. Dr. Soma? I think we have a break in communication, but I would like to also extend a word of gratitude and thanks to all the partners that partnered with us today to deliver this webinar, to the University of Joburg, the Technopreneurship Center, to First National Bank, Ingressive Capital, CSIR, Standard Bank, the PACTA wide chapter, as well as the Oracle Women in Leadership. I'd like to extend our gratitude for your participation and making sure that we can actually have this webinar. Mr. Sonwabo, would you like to give parting remarks? Or I see Dr. Shwama is back online.
Yeah, I'm back, Amina, thank you. I would like to say thank you to our panel members, Dr. Mpo, for telling us what exactly is happening at UJ, the available opportunities for women and how students can transform their ideas into feasible business ideas. Tim, thank you for telling us what Standard Bank is doing for entrepreneurs and in primarily focusing on women. Thank you, Nicole, for telling us what is happening at FNB and for calling women to open up to wider networks and to try and participate in different opportunities. Vanessa, your ideas and your contribution is appreciated. We hope that if there are any entrepreneurs in the room today, they are going to try and grasp the art of personal branding. That's very personal to me. Thank you, Ellie from Nairobi. That was wonderful to hear what you guys are doing in Kenya. What sort of efforts you put in place or you made to help startups to become profitable businesses. Did I leave out anybody? No, Dr. Luzango, thank you. And thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, I covered Vanessa already. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you to our sponsors, CSIR, Oracle, Standard Bank, and UJ, yeah, Paita. Mr. Sunwaba, thank you for putting together this platform for us, and thank you for being there for the women in digital era and everyone else. To all participants, thank you for taking part, and we're looking forward to having you in the upcoming sessions. We will let you know if there's anytime we will reach out to you and for your efforts maybe to participate in our events or to contribute to our ideas. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you so much. It was
Thank
really
you
good. It was a
all.
really good panel. Thank you guys. Have a good day.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Last evening.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Sonwabo.
Thank you very much. Appreciate.
Fantastic.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
You see, Siri
Siri,
is also asking a
we're not
question.
talking to
Hi,
you.
Siri.
We're not thanking you today, Siri.
Go ahead.
The Siri is not understanding our accent.